Track of time was the first thing you lost, but it won't be the last. You could swear you have been here before, at this exact spot. You even draped your torn, shit-stained shirt over the largest rock you could find. The shirt is gone, and in its place is a pair of dirty brown boots with soles worn to nothing. Each time you close your eyes, the world reconfigures itself around you, and when you open them again, nothing is as it was. Far off, mountains of ash melt into rivers of liquid light, creating a hauntingly spectacular sight. To your left, a forested silhouette looms against the dim sky, where sentient trees writhe and lament in languages long forgotten. Your mind, already teetering on the edge, is battered by the relentless transformations. You clutch at the shattered remnants of memory, trying to piece together how you landed in this hell. Flickers of your past life, faces, places, fleeting moments of joy and sorrow, dance through your mind like the ghosts that haunt this cursed place. Ah, now it comes back. It was your own foolishness that led you here. You were high up in the administration, very high indeed. You spent your days lounging in opulent offices, delegating tasks, while bending your mistress over that gleaming, polished mahogany desk. But it was never enough. Your heart knew no peace. The ritual seemed innocent enough. Just 9 quick, very precise incantations, amplified by a warp-powered amulet, or so you thought. Malakar had promised it was your gateway, just a chance to dip your toes into the waters. A free sample of the infinite knowledge beyond the veil. That lying scumbag, he screwed you over good. The chances of escaping this realm? 0. Yet still you trudge on. What else is there to do? Eternity waits for no one. But you can't help but wonder how Malakar fared after your colossal blunder. That slippery eel is probably the High Chancellor by now, enjoying the spoils of your idiocy. Your position and your power, all handed to him on a silver platter, while you're left to rot in this ever-shifting nightmare. In the distance, you see them, twisted otherworldly beings that defy description. Some are grotesque amalgamations of flesh and machinery, while others are ethereal, shimmering specters that seem to be made of pure thought. They move with an unsettling grace. You keep your distance, hiding behind rocks, or sinking into the shadows whenever they draw near. The very air crackles with arcane energy, and you can feel the eyes of Tzeentch upon you, watching, waiting. As you traverse this landscape, you encounter remnants of others who have been trapped here, scraps of clothing, broken weapons, and cryptic messages scrawled on rocks or in the dirt. "Trust nothing," reads one such message. Another warns, "He is always watching." These fragments of other lives are both a comfort and a curse. They remind you that you are not alone in your suffering, but they also serve as a grim warning of the fate that awaits you if you cannot find a way to escape. These fragments of other lives are both a comfort and a curse. They remind you that you are not alone in your suffering, but they also serve as a grim reminder of the fate that awaits you if you cannot find a way to escape. The day, or night, finally comes when you stand before the entrance to the labyrinth. Its towering structure of crystalline walls seems to pulse with life. Your first sweeping glance reveals an ongoing dance of merging and unmerging colors. Your mind is transported into the wall, forcing you to relive recorded visions. It's said that one can remain trapped there for days, growing ever more weary and unhinged by the tragedies revealed. Taking a deep breath, you step forward to face your doom. For in this accursed realm, the only thing that matters is the strength of your will, and of that, you fear there isn't much left. The psychic entity known as Tzeentch, lurking within the twisted depths of the immaterium, stands as the most inscrutable of the chaos gods, the ruinous powers that whisper ruin into the hearts of mortals. Tzeentch, the changer of ways, thrives on humanity's ceaseless craving for change, for betterment, for the spark of innovation, and the promise of progress. It is the embodiment of dreams for wealth, for prosperity, for a future brighter than the bleakness of today. Yet beneath this veneer of aspiration, Tzeentch, the great conspirator, weaves his web of corruption. What starts as a noble desire twists into ambition's dark shadow, turning humanity and Xenos alike into pawns in his grand, unfathomable schemes. Hopes become the very chains that bind, dreams the bait in his insidious trap. While the other dark gods carve their marks upon mortal society with brutal clarity, Khorne through unending bloodshed, Nurgle with relentless decay, and Slaanesh through the irresistible pull of ecstasy and excess, Tzeentch plays a subtler, more insidious game. His servants, be they human, Xenos, or demon, move in shadows, whispering lies and half-truths, steering the course of civilizations with a delicate touch. Theirs is a conspiracy vast and intricate, an ever-shifting maze of influence and deceit that ensnares all who dare to dream. The changer of ways prefers weapons of a more sly kind, honeyed words, tempting offers, ambitions that burn bright but twist to treacherous ends, and above all, plots within plots. Many a politician, scholar, or military officer has set out with noble goals, only to find themselves nudged by a seemingly helpful colleague who whispers sweet poison in their ear, slipping down the slope of moral compromise. They climb the ladder, stepping on the necks of others, taking shortcuts that lead straight into the dark embrace of the great conspirator. Even those with the purest intentions, or perhaps because of them, fall prey to Tzeentch's schemes. While the other dark gods cling to relatively fixed forms, Tzeentch revels in a multitude of guises. Often referred to as he, with the masculine slant, though in truth, like all entities of psychic energy that make up the Chaos Gods, it has no gender. The shape of Tzeentch is as fluid as the schemes it weaves, defying the stability of form. The air around Tzeentch hums with potent magic, swirling like liquid smoke about its head, forming intricate, ever-shifting patterns. In this ethereal mist, the shapes of places and people emerge as Tzeentch ponders their fates. Those unfortunate enough to appear in these visions find their minds, bodies, or destinies twisted into strange new forms. for none can catch Tzeentch's eye and remain unchanged. Yet across the eons, certain traits have crystallized in the god's shifting appearance, in the symbols associated with its worship, the forms of its demonic minions, and the nightmares it plants in the minds of mortals. These glimpses into the god's essence are fleeting and terrifying, leaving those who witness them forever marked by the touch of the great conspirator. Tzeentch is often depicted as a lanky sorcerer, thin as a starving wolf, draped in robes that shift through every color imaginable. Its head, barely more than a grotesque extension of its body, hangs low, blending into its shoulders. Long, spindly arms dangle like sinister marionettes, and from above its burning eyes, two sweeping horns spiral outward, their tips crackling with arcane fire. Some tales paint Tzeentch's demonic skin as a writhing tapestry of faces and mouths, each one sliding, emerging, and vanishing back into the unnatural flesh. They whisper dark secrets, mocking and leering at any foolish enough to meet their gaze. When Tzeentch speaks, these faces echo his words, but with subtle, insidious variations, or they offer a commentary that twists and casts doubt on the primary utterance, a chorus of deceit and confusion. However, some among the Ordo Malleus's demon hunters suspect that these perceived consistencies are just another layer of deception. The great deceiver is nothing if not a master of the convincing lie. And what better way to ensnare the unwary than with a facade of predictability amidst the chaos? Consistency, after all, is the bedrock upon which the most elaborate confidence schemes are built. Although many have pinned Tzeentch down as a spindly sorcerer, draped in shifting robes, others have seen the dark god as something far more chaotic. Imagine multicolored smoke, tendrils of unknown energy crackling and sparking, mutating everything they touch. Faces appear in the mist, a writhing mass of fleshy protoplasm, burning runes of dark tongues searing the very air, sometimes all within the same maddening vision. Then there are those who see birds and fish, or grotesque hybrids of both, swimming through the air, flying through the sea. Birds and fish crop up constantly in Tzeentch's lore, its iconography, and the forms taken by its demonic and corrupted mortal followers. The god's most powerful servants, the greater demons known as Lords of Change, loom like monstrous humanoid birds. Its screamers and the discs that carry his champions into battle often resemble flying manta rays, cutting through both the great ocean of the Empyrean and the air of real space like the Carcharodons of ancient Terra. Each vision, each twisted form, serves only to reinforce the one unyielding truth about Tzeentch. It is the embodiment of change. And yet, in this swirling maelstrom of forms and faces, there lies a grim consistency, a subtle deception. For in the end, Tzeentch is always there, watching, plotting, waiting to twist fate to its own inscrutable ends. Some say that the great mutator defies any fixed shape. When it deigns to take physical form, it's a mass of shifting flesh. Its ever-fluctuating body mirrors the forms of its own creations, demons and the landscapes of its domain in the realm of chaos, both in constant, maddening flux. Others argue that Tzeentch's physical manifestations are but illusions, conjured by the feeble minds of mortals attempting to grasp the incomprehensible. To them, Tzeentch is an agent of pure change, mutation, and flux, a concept too abstract, too alien for human perception. Such a being isn't a creature of flesh and bone, but a living metaphor, a nightmare beyond the grasp of any earthly senses. If there's truth in this reasoning, then it's no wonder mortals associate Tzeentch with birds and fish, denizens of air and water. These creatures thrive in fluid environments where wind and tide, wave and current perpetually reshape their world. Just as the air and sea are ever-changing, so too is the changer of ways, a god whose very essence is the relentless, unending march of transformation. In the end, perhaps it's these shifting symbols that come closest to capturing the elusive nature of Tzeentch. Mortal minds, even at their sharpest, cannot grasp Tzeentch's true nature. The moment they think they have, it shifts, rendering their understanding as useful as ashes in the breeze. The only constant in Tzeentch's realm is change itself, a perpetual metamorphosis that mocks the very idea of certainty. Loyal servants of the Emperor, ambitious Xenos, and scholars of the dark arts all share one piece of wisdom. Approach the architect of fate with caution and keep your gaze averted. The shifting breeze of Tzeentch sweeps up all who dare to focus too closely, dragging them into a storm of lies and insanity. Best to keep the changer of ways at the edge of one's thoughts, a distant figure in the periphery. For those who seek to understand will find only despair. As the most impenetrable of the Chaos Gods, Tzeentch reigns over sorcery, scheming, and ceaseless change. His many names whisper through the dark corners of the galaxy. The Changer of Ways, the Great Schemer, the Father of Lies and Deception, the Great Mutator, the Master of Fortune, the Great Conspirator, the Architect of Fate, and countless others. Tzeentch, in his endless schemes and transformations, stands as the most disturbing and incomprehensible of the Chaos Gods. His very nature is anathema to the static and the stable. He is the shifting sands, the changing tide, the mutating flesh. He is the whisper in the dark that turns friend against friend, the subtle suggestion that leads to ruin. Many follow Tzeentch, some willingly and knowingly, others deceived by the father of lies. They believe they advance their own agendas, but in truth, they blindly serve the Changer of Ways. Imagine this. In the sprawling expanse of Segmentum Solar lies an imperial palace. Once a bastion of opulence, now a shadow of its former glory. A dimly lit chamber within its walls tells the story of neglect. The grandeur, now a distant memory, is shrouded in layers of dust. Shadows dance across faded tapestries as flickering candlelight wages a losing battle against the surrounding darkness. There you sit, a nobleman of questionable repute, perhaps even a minor lord, dabbling in the treacherous game of politics. You lean over a cluttered desk, your fingers stained with spilled ink and the residue of countless lies. A long, weary sigh escapes your lips as you glance over yet another tedious document. a petty squabble about land and borders on the far side of the planet. These daily chores are as dreary as draining the palace sewers of shit, a comparison you often like to make. You were never meant for this kind of life, you tell yourself. You deserve so much more. A life of power and glory, befitting your noble birthright. An easy life on Terra, where sycophants and courtiers would follow your every whim. There you could bask in the Emperor's light. Is that really too much to ask from this forsaken existence? Who cares about these peasants anyway? You mutter under your breath, disdain dripping from every word. Let them tumble in the dirt for a few cycles more, no one will notice. The report slips from your fingers, landing on the desk with a muted thud. Frustration gnaws at your insides. The familiar feeling of the world closing in around you, suffocating and relentless. The office, with its cramped quarters and oppressive air, feels like a tomb. Your schemes against the High Chancellor, that filthy rat, must bear fruit soon or everything will crumble. While the plan holds promise on paper, reality rarely adheres to such neat theories. That's just a bitter fact you've come to accept. There are other forces at play here, more subtle and sophisticated, guiding your hand without you having the slightest idea that you are being led. Perhaps even to your own slaughter. For this power is cunning. Oh, so very cunning. It is truly unyielding in its determination to extract misery from the threads of fate. The door creaks open with an eerie slowness, and Malakar enters, an old advisor, his face etched with a lifetime of wrinkles and secrets, his eyes glinting with intelligence. He moves silently. In his hands, he holds a small, ornate box, its surface carved with unfamiliar symbols. My lord, an agent of ours has just delivered something of great interest. It arrived with the last trade ship, tucked away among the classified cargo intended for the High Chancellor's eyes only, Malakar said. He placed the box on the desk and opened it to reveal an artifact, an ancient amulet, pulsating with a faint glow. We spent a small fortune to procure it, a gamble I now believe will be repaid in full, and then some. Our esteemed Chancellor seems to be entangled in dealings far darker than we ever imagined. The bodies buried in his backyard are as numerous as the skeletons in your own walls, my lord. Forbidden relics, my lord, objects of power and corruption, the likes of which would make even the most hardened inquisitor shudder. He reached into his robes and pulled out a crumpled, blood-stained parchment, handing it to you. And this, my lord, is a letter from the High Chancellor himself, addressed to a known rogue trader. It details a transaction through which the Chancellor aims to gain new power in exchange for parts or possibly the entirety of a person's soul. The specifics are murky at best, their meaning veiled behind riddles. What we do know for certain is that this relic is as old as time itself and does not originate from within the galaxy. Your eyes narrowed. a cruel smile tugging at your lips. This was a most grievous accusation, the kind that gets a man a one-way trip to an inquisitor's dungeon. Ah, that would suit him. The High Chancellor, I mean. He has gotten too fat on power. A prison diet would slim him down nicely. Although, in my humble observations, I have found that losing one's head, quite literally, is the quickest way to stay on the healthy side of the Imperial Body Fat Index, you said in a theatrical tone. As your fingers brushed the amulet, a shiver ran down your spine, as if the artifact itself were alive, whispering promises of power and doom. You quickly pulled your hand away, clenching it into a fist. Your mind raced with implications and possibilities. Malakar leaned in closer, his breath a nauseating mix of the alluring sweetness of wine with a tinge of rotting meat. This will be your key, my lord. The Chancellor's downfall will be swift and decisive. Then the path to power will be clear for you. Plotters and schemers find themselves irresistibly drawn to Tzeentch, especially those who crave power to claw their way to the top. A week later, in the cavernous echoing hall of the Imperial Senate, you stand before the assembly, a snake in nobleman's clothing, holding the ornate box with the artifact inside and the blood-stained parchment. Your voice cuts through the murmurs. Esteemed senators, I bring news most foul. The High Chancellor of all people has betrayed our sacred trust. The evidence of his treachery is irrefutable, as I hold it here in my very grasp. Gasps and murmurs spread like wildfire. The High Chancellor, caught off guard, looks as if he's been punched in the gut. His face drains of color, his eyes darting around for support that isn't there. The High Chancellor desperately shouts, his voice cracking. Lies! What is the meaning of this? I am innocent of these charges! You hand over the box and the parchment to an inquisitor, a grim-faced man with eyes as hard as iron. The inquisitor inspects the artifact and reads the letter, his expression growing darker with each passing second. Politicians and leaders, magisters and chaos cultists, all tread the convoluted paths of fate, believing they harness Tzeentch to achieve their dreams. Little do they know, they are but pawns in his eternal game, dancing to his tune. The High Chancellor is dragged away, his protests echoing through the hall. As you watch the spectacle, a smile creeps onto your lips, oblivious to the shadow of Malakar lurking in the background, a ghost of satisfaction in his eyes. You never caught a glimpse of the knife that carved your path to power. Malakar, guided by Tzeentch, had planted the evidence. The Chancellor's fall paved the way for your ascension. Still, the web of deceit tightens around you, ever more tightly. Months later, you sit in the High Chancellor's chair, the weight of the title pressing down. Power is yours, yes, but whispers of rebellion and unrest gnaw at your ears. Nightmares, twisted and vivid, haunt your sleep. The amulet sits on your polished desk as a constant reminder of the price of power. Despite the seeming complexity, there is no grand plan, no ultimate goal behind the god's machinations. The mere act of plotting, the endless weaving of mortal fates, is purpose enough for him. To achieve any ultimate aim would spell the end of ambition, the cessation of change, and thus the demise of the Lord of Destiny himself. The reach of the Architect of Fate stretches far and wide, casting its shadow across the galaxy with particular interest in the Eye of Terror, the Maelstrom, the Great Rift, and the Screaming Vortex. In these regions where the warp and reality intertwine, Tzeentch's influence is at its zenith. Though not as blatant, or as numerous as the bloodthirsty hordes of Khorne, the followers of Tzeentch are no less formidable. They are deeply embedded within the fabric of mortal society and wield influence with cunning, manipulating events from the shadows. The educated elites, those who fancy themselves masters of their own destiny, often find themselves mere pawns in Tzeentch's game. They believe they seek knowledge and power for their own ends. Yet they always dance to the tune of the great schemer, their ambitions feeding into his endless labyrinth of plots and counterplots. Those who dabble in the forbidden arts, studying arcane lore, wielding psychic powers, or practicing sorcery, are prime prey for Tzeentch's temptations. The Changer of Ways delights in corrupting those who tamper with the raw power of the Empyrean, whether they do so with or without the Emperor's sanction. Imperial scholars have grimly noted that the incidence of the psycho mutation among humans rises with each passing generation. With this increase, the threat Tzeentch poses to humanity grows ever more dire. Thus, the Inquisition, the Adeptus Astra Telepathica, the Adeptus Astronomica, and the Scholastia Sicana are compelled to maintain relentless vigilance, hunting down any whisper of chaos corruption with merciless resolve. Countless safeguards are in place to shield Imperial psychers from the predations of warp entities. Yet no system is flawless, and the guardians of these barriers are as fallible as the flesh they inhabit, susceptible to errors in judgment and the very temptations they are meant to guard against. Even with these precautions, the danger is as relevant as ever. Imperial commissars are bound by ironclad orders to execute sanctioned psychers. At the first hint of possession or demonic influence, the cost of a single slip is too high. Better to spill the blood of the innocent. Fewer fall to Tzeentch's temptations compared to the other dark gods, for his rewards are elusive, his true nature an enigma, but those who do are forever changed. Bound to an endless cycle of plotting and betrayal, their fates intertwined with the great schemer's eternal machinations, they become part of the intricate web of lies and secrets. The worship of Tzeentch is not for the masses, but for those who crave understanding beyond the veil, who hunger for the power hidden in the darkest corners of the cosmos. Psychers, those with the cursed gift to tap into the warp, find themselves particularly susceptible to his seductions. They seek the hidden truths, the arcane techniques that promise to elevate their psychic abilities to godlike heights. In Tzeentch's service, they believe they can unlock the mysteries of the universe, mastering sorcery that bends reality to their will. For many, the forbidden knowledge Tzeentch offers is a lure too irresistible to ignore. Consider Magnus the Red, Primarch of the Thousand Suns. His fervent desire to protect his legion's sacred knowledge of the warp and sorcery led him inexorably into the embrace of the Changer of Ways. Not even a Primarch, a being of immense power and will, could resist Tzeentch's seductions. Under the iron heel of oppression, where hope is scarce and suffering is plentiful. It takes but a whisper from a charismatic heretical preacher to ignite the flames of rebellion. Promises of salvation, prosperity, and enlightenment become an irresistible siren song for those mired in ceaseless toil and disdain. Thus, Tzeentchian chaos cults sprout like weeds across the galaxy, the weary and disillusioned. Those once loyal subjects of the Emperor find solace in the captivating doctrines of these cults. What begins as a quest for respite from their relentless drudgery slowly transforms into a descent into madness. By the time the truth reveals itself, it is far too late. The pious and good-hearted who sought only a better life become unwitting pawns, their souls corrupted, serving the very force they once reviled. The Inquisition's fear is well-founded. Tzeentch's followers are not the brutish berserkers of Khorne, nor the plague-ridden wretches of Nurgle, nor the decadent hedonists of Slaanesh. They are the unseen puppeteers, the whisperers in the dark, capable of unraveling the fabric of the Imperium from within. Each cultist, whether a lowly worker or a disgraced noble, plays a part in a grand design that spans worlds and centuries. The Inquisition, despite its power, can only react, always a step behind, forever chasing shadows. For to confront Tzeentch is to battle an enemy that is ever-changing, a foe whose plans and motives shift like quicksand. Like all the Chaos Gods, Tzeentch commands an endless horde of minions, each more twisted and varied than the last. The diversity among these creatures is unmatched by any other ruinous power. His demons are a kaleidoscope of chaos, each distinct in form, intellect, and purpose. Yet hidden under this variance are threads of commonality. These creatures, denizens of the Sea of Souls, are fundamentally incompatible with the harsh reality of real space. Their existence in the material realm is a fleeting aberration, sustained only under specific and often ominous conditions. The transition from the immaterium to real space is not a mere crossing, but a violent intrusion, often heralded by some catastrophic event or arcane ritual. It is a forced entry, tearing the veil between worlds, allowing these nightmarish entities to manifest, if only for a short while. In these moments, the true nature of Tzeentch's power is revealed, as his demons bring forth madness and change, warping reality to suit their master's ever-shifting whims. Each demon is a reflection of Tzeentch's capricious nature. They morph and shift, their forms as fluid and unpredictable as their master's schemes. Some are towering behemoths, bristling with arcane power, while others are mere shadows, whispering secrets into the minds of mortals. They might be wrenched into the material plane by a sorcerer or a chaos cultist, performing some ancient, forbidden ritual. Or perhaps they find their entry through a psyker's loss of control, ripping into reality through the unfortunate soul's flesh. Sometimes it's a calamitous, sorcerous event, a psychic explosion that weakens the barrier between worlds just enough for these nightmares to slip through. Despite the precarious nature of their existence in the materium, these demons are not easily dispatched. Physical weapons often prove useless, bouncing off their otherworldly forms as if they were nothing more than ghosts. poison and disease, tools of mortal suffering, are meaningless to creatures born of the warp. Yet they are not invincible. Force weapons, relics imbued with sacred power, and psychic attacks strike at their very essence, their resonance within the Empyrean making them particularly effective. However, the majority of a lesser demon's existence is spent in Tzeentch's own homeworld, the realm of sorcery. Scholars, and the rare few who have emerged with their minds intact from Tzeentch's grip, whisper that neither mortal nor demon can truly fathom this chaotic expanse. To wander here is to court madness. The weak-minded shatter, while the iron-willed catch mere glimpses. Despite the ever-changing essence of the architect of fate's domain and the mortal mind's feeble grasp on its reality, some patterns emerge from the fragmented accounts of Tzeentch's realm. They speak of an immense crystalline labyrinth, a glowing expanse shimmering like a mottled opal under a cold light. Within this maze, passages appear and vanish, merge and split, twist and turn without any discernible logic. The labyrinth itself serves as an impregnable gate, a deadly puzzle for any fool daring enough to challenge the great schemer. At its heart looms the impossible fortress. It is often depicted as a crystalline citadel, forever stuck in a state of flux. As the name implies, even the most daring architects of the physical realm could not conceive the deranged structure of this place. Gates, portals, shafts, and stairways suddenly materialize, only to close violently when you least expect it. Only the most powerful lords of change can navigate the labyrinthine passages of this infernal fortress. Surprisingly, these entities thrive in its chaotic environment. Deep within the impossible fortress lies Tzeentch's mythical library. This endless collection of tomes, scrolls, and parchments holds every scrap of knowledge ever recorded in creation. Stories written and unwritten, histories true and alternate, and accounts of futures both potential and imagined. Some books, so stuffed with knowledge, develop a quirky self-awareness and an expanding intellect. They babble at passers-by, bicker among themselves, rewrite their own pages, and rearrange in a perpetual ballet of chaotic disorder. Chains of warp flame bind and safeguard these lively tomes, lending an extra touch of menace to their already delightful presence. Lowly demons play the role of librarians, endlessly reshelving books, cataloging the ever-expanding collection and keeping what loosely passes for order in the impossible fortress. But actual order? That's a foreign concept in Tzeentch's realm, practically a profanity to the great Lord of Change. No mortal could ever hope to understand the method behind this madness. Imperial records tell harrowing tales of the few souls who escaped the realm of the great deceiver. One succumbed to suicide, another spiraled into madness, and one was executed in the dungeons of the Inquisition. Yet, in a sense, they were the fortunate ones. Whispers abound that most who happen to fall into the god's labyrinth wander eternally, their minds shattered and spirits thoroughly broken. One account describes nightmarish visions in the mirrored surface of the labyrinth, demons tearing the flesh from his friends and loved ones. But the worst vision of all was his own body transforming into a tentacled abomination. When he finally managed to wrench his gaze away from these hellish scenes, he discovered that days had passed, and his worst fear had come true. His body had indeed morphed into the grotesque chaos spawn he had seen in his vision. The labyrinth hadn't just shown him horrors, it had made them his reality. Another tormented visionary spoke of seeing his children at different points in their lives, each vision steeped in sorrow and desperate misery, their faces twisted in pain, their cries echoing in his mind. Yet more accounts attempt to paint a picture of the horrors within Tzeentch's realm. One described a desert wasteland, haunted by deformed, headless humanoids that endlessly split and reform into grotesque new bodies. On the other hand, some described Tzeentch's realm as an ever-morphing feast of vegetation, where towers of fungus and mold rise and fall like breathing beasts, and continents of sentient plants stretch endlessly into the void. Yet another recounted a vast vista of barren stone and ash, devoid of all life and hope, each step echoing the futility of their existence. In the warp, time is a whimsical prankster that loves to bend and twist. But in Tzeentch's realm, this phenomenon gets cranked up to 11, turning into a full-blown nightmare in itself. Here, a few moments spent staring into the depths of the crystalline labyrinth can translate to solar days, or even years. Multiple souls might step into Tzeentch's realm simultaneously. One could pop back out moments later, claiming years had passed, while the other, lost for centuries, might insist he'd only been gone a few minutes. Timekeeping in Tzeentch's domain is clearly a well-organized affair. Many have been trapped by a fleeting curiosity, only to die of dehydration or starvation, convinced they'd been entranced for mere moments. Others wandered the mad corridors of his maze for years without food or rest, their bodies twisted by chaos, their metabolism slowed to a crawl. In this realm, time isn't just a dimension, it's a weapon, wielded with the precision of a sadistic artist. In a shrouded corner of the labyrinth, the guardian of the maze makes his abode, so the whispers go. He's more of a gatekeeper and silent observer than a true protector. When the soul-crushing monotony of mortal life becomes unbearable, when you're drowning in imperial documents behind your gleaming High Chancellor's desk, you might just throw caution to the wind and say, "Fuck it, I'm out!" and stroll down the treacherous but oh-so-thrilling path to infinite knowledge. Eventually, you'll end up face-to-face with this guardian. You'll have plenty of time to get well acquainted as you navigate through riddles and gates, cursing your life choices all the while. This path demands that you pass through 9 gates. These portals, thrice the height of a man, shine as golden arches wrapped in the eerie blue and pink warp fire of Tzeentch. The guardian of the maze, now your eerie companion, manifests as a giant, his disembodied mouth hovering above all 9 gates simultaneously. If by some miracle you answer correctly, you may proceed on your merry way toward ultimate enlightenment. But let's be real, you're going to fail. When you do, you'll be condemned to wander the labyrinth for eternity, your mind shattered by insanity and regret over the knowledge you nearly grasped. Enjoy the stroll,